Welcome, everyone, to St. Andrew Lutheran Church as we gather here for a program with our friend Krystal Queen, who's part of the Friendship Project here this evening. I want to welcome everyone who's joining us online before we start. There are those who will be joining us on the live channel, and also those who will perhaps view this afterward on our YouTube channel too. So it's just out there for people to see and learn. For those of you who are at home and want to contribute a question or a comment as a course of our evening and our conversation, I'm going to give you a phone number, and it'll also be on the bottom of the screen too, so that you can send a text. I'm covering it here on my phone here, so as you send it from home, it will be inbound here. And it seems to work amazingly, this technology that we're using. So the number is 612-562-7696, 612-562-7696. That'll be on the bottom of the screen throughout the evening at various times, and so there'll be ways to get that as well for questions. But this presentation here this evening is a part of what we at St. Andrew are calling a more just world. This is a program that we started a year and a half ago with the murder of George Floyd, when we as a congregation wanted to step much more intentionally into the process of understanding, of listening, of learning about our society and people in our society that maybe we have more and more to learn from. And so for us at St. Andrew, it's been a learning process, a growing process, and a changing process regarding the realities of race in our world that is ongoing as well. But it's also an opportunity for us to ask broader questions about broader needs, about broader challenges that exist in our society too, not just race, but all the other corners of our world where we're learning and growing and need to understand better as faithful and caring people. How is it best to respond to those people in those circumstances? And so a couple of months ago, when we were talking about a more just world, we thought again of our friend Krystal Queen, who's been part of our congregation for several years now as well, in her work and her leadership on behalf of single parents, single moms in particular, but how she has made it her work in various shapes and forms of advocating for the care of single parents, broader understanding of what the circumstances are and what are faced by single parents in our society, not just raising children relatively alone, but especially those who struggle with economic uncertainty, housing uncertainty, and other concerns. And so as a social worker, but also as an advocate for single parents, we welcome Krystal Queen here tonight for a casual conversation and dialogue. We will not only have questions coming in on the phone number that I mentioned before, but also I have a microphone here, so if there are any questions or input from the audience, I'm here too. I'll come to you with the microphone, and we'll make sure it gets in the microphone, because then it will be broadcast. If it is in the microphone, no one can hear it elsewhere. So, okay. So, Krystal, just my brief introduction to you. I'll just turn it over briefly, just for a few words too. We have several questions that we prepared to make our way through here tonight. But welcome to St. Andrew. It's good to have you here again.
Yes, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Great to see everybody, as I know all of you sitting here. And welcome everybody that's online. So thanks for joining. I have a whole bunch of my notes, technology-wise on my phone. That's how we live now, so we're good. But it's great to be back. Haven't been back to St. Andrew for a while. We are running Adopt a Family right now and handing out their gifts next Friday night, so that will be exciting.
That's right. Hosted here at St. Andrew on Friday night, a week from Friday evening here, a party in the fellowship hall and a chance to engage with the single parents in the community. We were reminiscing about the event a few years ago here when you first came, when we had John Gallardi and Bud Grant and other Mike Max.
Yeah, I walked in here and I just sat here for a minute and was like, oh my gosh, this is like, what, 5 years ago?
I guess it was. I think it was.
Just sitting here and looking around like, wow.
It was an event to help raise funds for the Friendship Project, for the Project Friendship at that point, it was called, and to raise awareness about single parents in our community. And it was wonderful to have them here. And we did that on this here in the chancel in this place. So
this exact setup.
So a good history. Good history.
Yes.
But I thought it's helpful to go kind of back to the very beginning, because some of us know of your presence here at St. Andrew and in the community, but some who are here with us or joining us online don't know who Krystal Queen is and what contributions you have made. So I thought going all the way back kind of to the beginning for you, you have a pretty powerful story and a background here of being a single parent yourself, and how you identify closely. I wonder if you could just tell a little bit of your story.
Sure. Yeah, so we don't have like all day, but I'm just going to read off a couple of my notes. I was raised by a single father and an older brother. I had Jermel when I was 18. I had Makai when I was 20. They have the same dad. And Reese, and he's sitting in here, when I was 24. So having a kid as a kid, I learned what it meant to grow up fast, what it meant to fight for many things in my life, through battles, through hurdles. I was on welfare when I was 18 years old when I had Jermel. And meaning welfare, there's many terminologies to that and many stigmas to that, but meaning I was receiving food stamps, which was SNAP benefits. At that time, medical assistance, but not cash. Was not able to receive cash as was over the income for that. Did have a job employment counselor, which he is in here today, and he's very near and dear to my heart. And he helped me, which I was able to work to receive childcare. So just to give you a little example of what it looks like going back, which is crazy, 16 years ago, right? If you were making $2,400 a month, and you had rent that was $850, right? Just to financially put this in a little bit of a situation, right? You're so far behind already when you're trying to start by paying your bills, by getting childcare, even with just one child, right? So think of that, 800, this is just a prime number, right? Right now childcare might be more than that, but it's let's say it's 800 for a month, 850 for a one-bedroom apartment. In Eden Prairie, it's even higher than that because the market rate. And then you're paying bills, you're paying food, trying to get food, and trying to live above that. You're already falling behind. And so I just wanted to say that example, and the example of that is $28,800 a year. And the average single parent annual income right now in the US is $48,000. $48,000. So can you see where there's kind of like that gap? Just to start off, right? And not even only the fact that I was a kid having a kid, so I didn't know what I was doing anyway. Just be real, I had no idea what I was doing. And I was having a child. So I've been through the family court system, through other government systems to battle parenting, child support, and even more. I was on the system, working for the system, and educating myself how to do better. Right? And that's kind of where it all started. So that's a little bit of my background in a nutshell. I mean, we could sit here for...
I wonder, I just think it's part of that getting an understanding of the challenges that is. I mean, I know from what I understand too in my research that a week of childcare, in a childcare center is $350 to $450 per week.
Right.
For a family to have a child in a child care center. That's pretty challenging for any family to handle, let alone someone who's on it. So there are absolute challenges like that exist. I wonder, we will talk, of course, on the ways that you have found to not only succeed, but also find ways to thrive. But I wonder if there's just to dwell for a moment on the challenge of what it means to be a single mom. Is there a particular story that you remember that would help us even empathize further?
I wouldn't say there's a specific story.
Yeah.
I think it doesn't matter if you're a single parent or just a parent. We all struggle in general. I do think and believe that being a single parent, you only have one voice. Like one option and one ruling with real no firm, steady backup. Meaning you're making decisions for yourself and your children, not knowing what the real next step is or what really might happen next. Like trusting your own intuition and your gut and your mind based on your own experiences to know if that's the right direction to go in. So I kind of put down here, like, just so as to stand strong and firm while loving is a challenge. Like kind of like the cycle of life, right? We all have the great moments, but we also have moments of challenges based on the season, right? There was moments where, I mean, I was running around with a toddler and a little one at the same time while, right? I'm like trying to take care of one while taking care of the other, and they're in two different cycles, right? But I put going through domestics, going through bed rest, pregnant with Reese, my youngest, while raising two older children, going through court battle, being the only one with them when they're sick or missing work, explaining to my kids when they were younger that their dad loves them, but he just didn't have his priorities straight. I mean, it's all a challenge. Like every piece of it's a challenge, right? But I think the biggest challenge is even when we are labeled by others, or we think we're labeled by others, and not to label ourselves. We think we're the only ones in the situation, and no one understands, and they might not. They might not understand what we're going through, but then show them, right? We are judged as single parents, but how do we embrace it, right? How do we embrace our story to know that we're good enough? And I think that's the underlying, like I cry, but that's really for a lot of people where, like a lot of single parents, what it is the judgment.
Well, and you help us by telling the story, develop a new kind of empathy, in a sensitivity, in a compassion, and so that's why your story is so powerful for us to hear. And I know too that there have been opportunities that have come before you too that have resulted in some real positive, developments. I've heard the stories and know them, and the power of friendships and opportunities that come. But tell us a little bit about some of those things that helped you at those stages find balance and support.
I think that's all about learning, right? Every step of the process that we go through in life is learning. By developing and doing personal and professional development, opening up. I think opening up. I remember when I was first working at Eden Prairie School District, and Coach Grant, which he's sitting in here, was would like always offer me to come over, right, or to have dinner and bring my kids. And right now he's like, okay, now like you're super weird. I'm not bringing my kids to your house, right? Like, and his wife would talk to me, and Colleen and all that kind of stuff. But really just being open to have conversations with others that are different, right? Which partly goes along with, right, we hang out with people that we look like or are normally around, but to branch out and talk to other people and people that you're not like, you start to open yourself up and see a different side. You start to open yourself up and letting others in. And I put opening up to share my story, and the biggest is letting others care about me and love me and support me because they cared, which is hard, right? Trust is hard. When you go through so many bad relationships or so many things in life that are struggles, you don't want somebody else to judge you based on your struggle, right? You don't want the sympathy, empathy from somebody else. And I said, as a single mother, when someone offered to help, they wanted something in return, right? It's that mindset like, well, I really have nothing to give, right? And a lot of times I had nothing to give in return, and I would ask for help because I didn't want the sympathy or pity from others, so it was hard to trust. And trust is really, really hard when you're going through so much and you're not even understanding what you're actually even going through, right? It's like you're living in the moment and you're struggling and going through these battles, but you're not reflecting on what's happening. You're just on like crisis mode, right? Or you're just making sure what's happening next is going to happen next to be able to get through it. And so I think that's part of the biggest part. And I brought up when I started to open up and build those relationships and open myself up to others, I was able to be more authentic with myself, which was a huge positive. But I also built relationships with family and friends that are actually in here today. right? If I didn't do that, then I wouldn't be where I'm at today. If I didn't put myself around great people, then I wouldn't be where I'm at. So,
where does that strength come, Krystal? In those, maybe it was, as you say, a setting with people were open around you and allowed you to be honest, or where else do you think this? Where does the strength?
I think you get to a point where you're just, I don't want to say necessarily give in, right? But it's like someone asks you to do something so many times, you're like, seriously, like leave me alone. Like, what do you want, right? Like, why do you want me to come eat dinner at your house? Why, right? Like, but there was there was like that no judgment, just always offer. Hey, can I bring you a meal? Hey, can I bring you a meal? Even during COVID, right? You'd ask family or friends, like, do you need anything? Do you need a meal? Do you need anything? And then finally someone just gives in. Like, yeah, I'd love for someone to cook a meal, right? Sure, we'll drop it off. I mean, I might not cook it. I might go pick it up somewhere and drop it off, but I'll get it, right? So, but it's like one of those things where you keep offering on both ends, right? And as a single parent, when someone keeps offering, you get to a point where you realize, like, you're just tired. Like, you might just be tired in your situation, or you're looking for something more, or, you're looking for the next up in life, or a lift in life, and that might have been, right, the reason why God brought me into working in Krystals School District and into that path and met Coach Graham, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, look at where we're at now, right? And everybody else that's sitting in here, and look at where we are now. And it's like those small things that we don't really look at or realize the opportunities at that time because we just don't know, right? It's like the unknown.
Tell us about one of the things that dawned on me when we first met, and I was learning more about single parents, about the statistics. I think that I was surprised that there were the number of single parents in our community than there are, and so I wonder if you have a sense of what we're talking about here. I mean, this is why A More Just World is sort of one of those eye-opening moments where we hear the stories of challenge that single parents have, but maybe it even becomes more profound when we hear about how many single parents there are.
Yeah, so I can kind of read you here what I have. According to the 2020 U.S. Bureau, 4 out of about 11 million single-parent families with children under the age of 18, and 80% were headed by single-parent mothers. About 4 out of 10 children are born to unwed mothers. Nearly 2/3 were born to mothers under the age of 30. Today, 1 in 6 children are under the age of 18, and a total of about 12.5 million are being raised without a father. If a single mother, and this is just other statistics that I think are super important just to understand, like, financially where single parents are and single mothers are, but if a single mother is able to work, her earnings power still lags significantly compared to a man's at about 82 cents to $1 for the same job, leaving a wage gap of 18 cents on the dollar. The wage disparities are even greater for women of color. African American women earn only 64 cents, while Hispanic and Latino, far worse, being paid just 56 cents to the dollar. In EP, there's 65, roughly 1,000 people, with 5.4% living in poverty. This number is now higher due to COVID. All of EP, married, there's about 59.9%, single mothers is 7%, single fathers is 3.5%, one-person households is 24.6%, and other non-family is 3%. Now, based on family and household type, based in Eden Prairie School District and household data, married families is 80.6%, single mothers is 14%, and single dads is 5.4%. So if you look at those statistics, those are pretty big. Right? And I know that one of the questions that we kind of talked about before and that you have written down is, like, why is that not known, right? And there's many reasons I think that we don't take that into consideration or really know is because we don't really use the data for many things. There's not enough programs out there to really use the data to make an effective change to help single-parent households, and there's no program that really shows if you're a single parent with a household of this many kids, and this is what you're going to get help with. It's based on a household family size as a whole, not how many adults you have in the household and how many children you have in a household. Right? Look, granted, okay, so just to give everybody a little background, I worked for Hennepin County, Ramsey County, as a financial worker, as a lead worker there, and then also at Metropolitan Council as a Housing Redevelopment Authority coordinator. So to me, the numbers just come. So if you have questions, right, or have questions about certain things related to that, but everything is based off of household size and income, right? So, for example, if I was married, right, with 2 kids, it would consider both of our income with a household of 4. If I was single, like I am, with 3 children and our household's 4, it would still take that same number. You see where I'm kind of going? Okay. So, right, so that's like, hey, system, people that work for the system, if we changed it, you would see and be able to affect more families and make a more massive impact because we're going off of who actually can work in the household and who cannot, right? Based on, and also income and the poverty level, right? But then, for example, at other places, you might go in and fill out your demographics. Well, single means single, even if you marked you have kids at home. So there's no underlying factor that says, are you a single parent? Are you taking care of someone else's kid?
Who else are you supporting?
Right. So I think that's where there's a huge gap in data and information that we could use to actually better our own programs within ourselves, but also even at every other level is, well, if it's really a single parent, how can we have and do better resources, give better resources, and build better programs to actually help them?
So what efforts can you make in organizations to advocate for these things too? Talk a little bit about what that looks like in your work and in your advocacy. You know, about making those points known. Where does that happen?
Well, it happens at every level, I think. I love to stir the pot, so I'm a little bit different than most people, and I'm just going to be honest. So when there's an issue or a problem, I have no problem reaching out to city council, the mayor, to whoever needs to be, like, right, the county commissioner, whatever that looks like, to really have those conversations. But the concern that I still have is you have the conversation, but there's no follow-up, or there's no change. And I'm not saying that change happens overnight, because I know it doesn't, but even having more conversations for other individuals within that political or whatever world you're looking, school district, whatever world you're looking at, to have more of the conversations to understand the root cause of what's actually happening to be able to make that change still doesn't happen. And I think that's where if we had more data and more information and was able to educate more, then we would be able to make more change.
So there have been times when I have had someone call St. Andrew for a need, you know, and there are people who come to St. Andrew and they have needs, and I sometimes go, I don't know, but I do know someone who knows some things. And so I remember a couple of years ago when I reached out to you and I said, I have a single mom here with a story, you remember probably, to Krystal, and I said, I need some help to figure out how to navigate this. And we met this woman and kids at a Panera, I believe, here. Do you remember in Eden Prairie here? And the thing that I was experiencing there, which I did some with Krystal, but this is what you do all the time.
Yeah,
there are people who reach out and are in need and don't know, and I don't know how to navigate the system either and understand fully, but you did. You did, so I was at your side to learn about that. But yeah, you remember that?
So I call it different levels of TLC, right, is where all the families are at, single parents. And right, they might be over here where they have a really great job and they just need support, right, just someone to talk to, maybe someone to have coffee with every once in a while to understand where they're coming from, a listening ear, or pick up and drop off kids at, you know, sporting events or things like that. And then you have Others on the other end that are, and I said to say other single parents that are very at the beginning, right? Meaning they don't have a job, they might be on welfare, we're trying to help them from the baseline up. What does it look like to do interviewing skills? What does it look like? Where do they want to go in life, right? Build their career, put them around great people, do more networking, and then really guide them through every step of what it looks like to get through the county system, the court system, right, the navigation of every single system, which is, yes, it could be a massive, long pamphlet of information or a booklet, right? But then you guide them and navigate them through that. And so there's those two spectrums. I would have to say that the actual single mom and her 2 children that Peter is talking about was the only time in my life where I was sick. Like I was sick to my stomach for nights, because it's like you can bring someone to want to get help, but you can't make them take the help, right? Because you're so used to the situation, or you might have mental health issues, or you might have other things going on, which is where you have to give another resource. But I am telling you, like, I have seen many things, well, I've been through many things in life, but I've seen many things in life with different families, and being homeless and living out of your car, and me literally trying everything in my power to get her into a hotel, to get her anywhere, help her with the school district. There was like 3 nights in a row I was crying. I was like sick to my stomach where I thought I was gonna throw up. I mean, it was, because you can only do so much, and you have to give them the resources, single parents the resources, to let them do it, right? Yep. But that's why I say, you get to a point where you have like that feeling, that intuition, where you're like, yep, I'll have a conversation with you. You look like someone I could trust, right? I'll have a yep, I'll come have dinner with you. Like, me and my kids need something different, right? And so you kept offering. You just keep offering, right? And I'm telling you, like, her daughters were super smart children with like 3.7 and 3.9 GPAs. And like, one day when I see them on TV and they're telling their story, I'm gonna like jump for joy.
They were in Panera doing their homework.
Right.
While we were trying, while I was watching you try to work with their mom. Yeah.
You know, so, but yeah, there's stories like that every single day, referrals every single day. I'm working with a new person that's working in Burnsville as a cultural liaison, and we're working now over there with some single parents and trying to help navigate that situation, and those situations. So it's like you just don't know what someone else is going through until you offer and have those conversations. And that's the biggest part.
Well, and you've always been available at any hour, practically, when I've texted before.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, you texted me, I was doing a return at Target.
Okay. Something like that. But
so can you give me 10 minutes? But yeah.
But you just care and respond. And so when you talk about some of the systems in place out there, you know, we've talked about what changes need to be made, but what kind of, who are the main partners that you try to have single parents engage with when they're in higher needs, say to say? So it's not just the people who need to have a cup of coffee and just some good caring support in a conversation, but more, help us understand what you do.
So we have a huge amount of community, I think, here in Eden Prairie that are willing to help or put their hands, like all hands on deck kind of thing. So even with adoptive family, we have an amazing amount of sponsors and families and people that step up, like Katie Cole and some other people that kind of, Alicia, that help do things. I would say that I specifically have work with a woman that does more of the trauma-based with some of the families, just because you'll only hear a certain amount of things, and then not necessarily all the rest, right? Like, I am not a licensed social worker, right? Just to make sure everybody understands, like, I am not that person. But we also have for a long time had a group of board members that also helped and do some navigation and some things like that. We have some other people in the community that are very big on just helping. So if it looks like Margaret McBride's daughter, some people within HR that we've helped do interviewing skills. We've done multiple different things in that world. So I think it's just all volunteer based specifically. So yeah, but I mean, going from 2013 and kind of having this vision for what Project Friendship was that time to the Friendship Project, and then going through, right, we were trying to do a base, just a small, right, just start small, just grow small, right, and what that looks like. We do no state and federal funding, right, we do specific sponsors, like if companies want to help sponsor, or individuals specifically, and then the rest is all volunteer based. So there's a couple companies that have stepped up to the plate, like I know 3M has done a little bit, Health Source here in Eden Prairie, that do specific things that help us when we need it. And then before COVID, we did some more things that actually like brought single parents together, right? So their kids can meet each other, we can hang out with each other, right? And that kind of thing. And I know, Mike, in the past, we've tried to put together some of the things at Lake Riley with the Lions, to the fishing and things like that. And we're hoping to get back there.
I hope so. How else has the pandemic shifted and changed what you can and can't do? I don't know if it exactly shifted for us as a nonprofit. I know many nonprofits in general are struggling with funding in general, but I think that now coming, going into 2022, we'll be able to get together and do more things. Last year, during this time, my house was my house is always a disaster. So let's be honest. I live in a boys' frat house, just let everybody know. But in general, last year at this time, like I literally really didn't have anywhere to sleep. We helped and delivered about 121 gifts to single parent households, and the government was shut down. So I ran everything out of my house. Jermel told me this year I was never able to do that again. But I had a majority of his friends actually come over and wrap the gifts, and I got them pizza. So it was a win-win for a lot, but it took a lot at that time. So, but we're super blessed that we were able to help that many families, and I got to a point where I just couldn't tell people no, because of how down and out people were, right? Because our goal was to do 100, and then I just kept getting more phone calls and more referrals, and I was like, we have the money. Does someone want to go shop, right? So it was like, and then it just kept going. And then by the time we delivered them all, like I give huge kudos ones to my kids and everybody that came out to deliver. Like we were packing cars up and running around the Twin Cities delivering gifts. As you look into 2022, there's a gathering of people here who have compassion and are learning more than others in the community. What role do individuals does a church like ours, or what can we do?
I think more just partnership, more education, more knowledge. So getting together more, looking at building back what our actual board looks like is huge, right? Many people had different changes in life, had different work changes. We're looking at what it actually looks like to do more strategic planning of our own to move forward. What does it look like to actually try to grow with funding or not, like based on what we're trying to do. And then more partnerships. It's as easy as, hey, can I be a volunteer and take one of the single parents to go have coffee and maybe do the intake, right? Where I'm not the only person doing it or the only phone call. Or, hey, I'm really good at interviewing skills, or would love to jump on a Zoom call with somebody. Can we do that? Like, I can jump on and do that, right? Because a lot more things now that are remote, right? And you can teach or educate that way. Or even, hopefully, I know Mike and I kind of talked about this a while ago, but like even getting back to doing the actual mentorship, where we match the families and do partnership. We're looking at trying to get back into that too for 2022.
Well, our number for people can text in is 612-562-6796. But I also want to open up the floor as well for any questions or comments. I've got a microphone here that I can come down to you so you can share a little bit too, questions and wonderings. Anybody?
You want to ask a question? Anyone?
Yeah, okay, I'll come down to here. Let's start here in the front. Go ahead. Yeah.
What are your needs right now? Do you see it being more physical needs, like people are needing clothing and food? Are you seeing more mental health? What do you see? Is it everything probably? Like, what are you seeing right now? And what can people do right now for you?
So, our biggest need over the pandemic was food. It was drastic. Right now, the biggest need is actually financial, in terms of housing. And I think, and I gave you a whole bunch of numbers, right, based off of 2020 census, and I think those numbers right now are very skewed, based on the pandemic, and that's just my own personal opinion. Housing is a huge issue, and the state and the federal government has let go of funds for certain organizations to help and give those out based on their discretion and based on their policies, practices, and procedures. And a lot of them need to change their policies, practices, and procedures based on moving forward. So housing is the biggest issue in general. I mean, the homelessness rate is actually drastically going up. So that's not a specific need, obviously, that I need right now, but that's just the educational side of what's actually happening. Our biggest need right now is really, I would just say we're just doing adopt a family right now, which we don't have a high need for. We actually have every single family that filled out an application who has been sponsored, which is the first time ever. So I'm super grateful for that. And then we have other families that are doing mom and dad boxes based on a single parent to give to the parent, just to keep it a little more easier. So as of right now, we don't have like a massive big need besides what it looks like to really plan out 2022.
Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit more about the Adopt a Family program too. Just
what are we on year 5? So we started off with doing Adopt a Family just with a handful of families that we're starting with. I think we were at 25 the first year. Went up to 75, and then ever since then did 100. My goal every year was 100. This year we're at 60, which is a good number for us. It's a perfect number. But if we ever got a referral or what that looks like, then I would take them based on their situation or who's referring them, to build that community and build that contact with that family. And so what it is they just literally fill out an application, we take it in. If they're not already a family that we know within the Friendship Project, we talk with them. This year we narrowed it down to just the Southwest Metro.
Okay.
Last year I was very open, and so we'll just leave it at that. And so we narrowed it down to just that area, and then we either match them with the family or we go out and buy gifts for them based on our funding, and then we wrap them and they get presents, right? Mm-hmm. So just pretty simple, pretty easy, but you have no idea the impact that makes on a family over the holidays. I mean, we dropped off presents last year, and I had some of the parents that were dropping them off, or people helping me, were like, I stood in the driveway for 30 minutes because she was crying the whole time. And I'm like, yeah, right? Like, now you get it, right? Like, now you're feeling, right? But it's like the impact of the actual experience where it's heartfelt, where you actually start to understand. Right.
And so this year we're able to host both the parents and the children this year. Maybe keeping the activities a little bit more muted because of the circumstance, but gathering together. Yep.
So gathering, we're doing like desserts. There'll be cookies and things, super simple, and then pictures. Alicia's actually here, and she does photography, my friend, and so she's going to do pictures with Santa for kids while they pick up their gifts. Yep. So simple, easy, and still trying to abide by whatever the real COVID rule is, but yes.
Yeah, doing the best that we can.
Exactly.
Providing care for people. I mean, that's the thing, especially this group of people. And I appreciate the networking too that has happened. Do you have a transformational story of a partnership between a mentor family with a single mom, or that's been a goal of
so I
the
think
Friendship Project.
Allison and Leah's story is pretty phenomenal, and they still talk today. And Leah actually has another kid and is in a really good relationship. Allison's in a really good relationship and has another kid. but that was one of our first matches, doing very well. So that transformational story is pretty big.
And this was a process where we had people here in Eden Prairie, many of whom are members here at St. Andrew, that were matched up and paired with a single parent in the community to accompany through life. The birthday was coming, or a holiday was coming, or a family had a boat out on Christmas Lake or something, and so there could be a boating some in the summer just to have some fun together but build relationships.
Yeah, and that's what we're hoping to get back to. Really, is to be able to do more partnership matching, which really brings that community together, and then also more just in general, like just community building events. I think that's one of the biggest things, and I know Health Source has talked about it a lot, and a couple other different committees that I've talked to have talked about, well, what does that look like, right? Even if it's not the educational side, but what does it look like to come out and help and volunteer? And one of the biggest things I think even over COVID is realizing how many people want to volunteer, but they don't know how. Or we don't have a way for them to volunteer as of right now, but what does it look like to take their skill sets and have them do something that could help impact a single parent's life? And so that's what, for 2022 is one of the biggest goals, is to kind of get back in there and what does it look like? And maybe that's, going bigger and broadening out and getting out more out of just the, Southwest Metro. But it's also, takes people and takes hands. And
talk about some of the partnerships that you developed on and off, but relationships with, and some of the training events that you've done, some of the women's empowerment events and trainings that you've done here at St. Andrew, but then also other places as well.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of different things with financial literacy, building off that. Nicole Middendorf, she's a financial advisor in Minnetonka, came out and spoke here. Lutheran Social Services came out and spoke, gave some information and guidance, done some partnerships in that way. I'm trying to think of other places. I don't know, we've done a lot of partnerships. I think the networking is huge. I think one-on-one partnerships is one of the key things that is happening right now. It has happened since the beginning. I think Health Source is a huge partnership every single year. Lifetime has done many things for us, even from when we did the event here with Bud Grant and John Glardy, and they did donations, but also just in general with helping, like last 2 years ago, they did all the mom boxes and had a group of women do that. So I think that there are so many partnerships that actually can happen and flourish when you put it out there and you educate more. It's just, I think with COVID, a lot of things have changed. A lot of committees have changed. Initiatives within different companies have changed. But just keep building off of that, I think, is the biggest impact. Because even if you go into a committee and they might not want to do specifically what your program's offering or fund it, there might be someone in there that's willing to come out and help or be a partner in some way or sponsor in some way.
Any other questions from anybody, or stories of your own in the audience here that relates?
Hi, it's loud. My name is Jim Downey. I was for about 20 years a vocational counselor with Hennepin County. Met Krystal, you've heard her story, you've heard part of her story. She came to me as a young mom, lost, confused. We developed a relationship. She went to work, made changes, got out of bad relationships, which is often what fosters a lot of single parenthood. It did for my program anyway. And when people met me, they had pretty much hit rock bottom, I think, where they had to reach out and say, I need help. And I tell them, the good news is, the bad news is you're here. The good news is you're here. So we can do some stuff if you want. this is an opportunity. And nobody took greater advantage of that than this girl. She came, she worked, she left, she came back, she works more, and now this is what she does. She pays it forward every day. Raises her 3 boys, has learned how to reach out and find the support she needed to take it upon herself to offer up that kind of support. Our friendship has lasted. I'm so proud of her. And basically, she's proof that it can be done. It's not easy. There are multiple barriers for single parents, and particularly by the time they hit public assistance. You've got financial barriers, childcare barriers, transportation barriers, housing barriers, mental health, just health in general, and then trying to be all things to your family. And it takes a lot of work. It takes an enormous amount of determination. And like Krystal said, developing relationships, trust relationships, like Mike and his group were instrumental in her life. The one criticism I have of her is she thought so much of me that she sent all her friends my way and increased my workload. But happy to do it, and I'm happy to say many of them are doing well. And not everybody in that program succeeded. I'd like to say they all did, but they didn't. But they had the opportunity, and that was always my pitch. This is a chance to change your life. If you choose to grab onto that opportunity, there are things we can do. You know the life you're living. You continue to do that. And the strange things about life is the only constant in this universe is change. Things are usually either getting better or they're getting worse. And I'm a big believer in momentum. And nobody's more on the upward trend. I thank her.
Thanks for sharing. That was nice.
So that was my job employment counselor from when I was 18 when I had your mouth. And so literally it was rock bottom. And I can tell stories about, like, that number was not a joke. That's the amount of money I was making looking back when I was working at Hennepin County. I was working at Hennepin County on the system on benefits, working for the system, right? Which doesn't make sense, and there's families still happening right now like that, right? Working families that are still struggling because they're not getting paid enough and still on welfare, or still getting different benefits to be able to provide, right? So it's not the stigma that there's this negative, right? Being on welfare is like this in societies, like there's this negative stigma about it. But it's really a hand up to get the help that you need to be able to provide for your children, right? No matter what it looks like or what it is. And there's a lot of things, especially with COVID happening, where there's not medical provided for families. There's certain things that aren't provided because of things that have happened at different companies. And so when you use that to get yourself better and to move up, that's just a hand up, right? Now, granted, I say that there's like 95 to 98% of people are looking to become better, and there's that 2% that are just, right, might be a little off and just need some more guidance or mental health or something else is going on, right? In my mind, right? So, sorry, as my child's calling me. And so, it's just those things though, when he talks about having the opportunity, it's like you're given this opportunity, and that's kind of how I saw the building relationships is you're given an opportunity and you meet someone, right? What kind of relationship are you going to build, right? What story can you share with them? What's the next step in that? What does that look like? Or just standing there and having someone just talk to you and vent about what's going on, just to listen, right? That gives someone else the opportunity and chance to build that relationship, but for you to understand who they are. And I think that's the same thing, right? Like every opportunity I might be a little mentally disturbed because I think there's always bigger and better. So there's always something, right? There's always something else out there that I could be going for or doing. And there's people that are like, you just need to calm down. And I'm like, no, we're going to do this. And it's going to happen tomorrow, right? Like, yeah, and they're like, okay, let's just relax a little. But I do think that when you're given an opportunity, many times as a single parent, you turn that opportunity down because there's so many other things happening in your life, or there's so many other barriers that you really don't rationalize that decision or really know how to say yes to something because you're so overwhelmed already with what's happening in life. And so I think if we all can figure out as single parents like how to take that moment to really see what that next step is with that opportunity, it's worth it. Like, what's the risk? The majority of things, right?
So the Adopt a Family event a week from Friday evening, do you need any help with that evening, Krystal?
So we have a handful of volunteers already that are coming to help. We have a couple football, basketball players that are going to help bring out gifts. If you would love to help, we would love to have anybody that's willing to come and build community and talk with people and volunteer and do checklists in and try to hand gifts out. We would love help.
They just reach out to you to
yeah, so I'm on Facebook, Instagram.
Send a note to you? Okay.
Or you can email our nonprofit on the website. However you want to respond. If you text me, I will respond way quicker. Just being honest. But so.
And then looking ahead then into January and February and things as the Friendship Project, thinks and wonders. What's the best way for us to kind of keep engaged with development?
Website?
Okay.
I know that Mike and I are gonna meet again, and we're gonna see what this looks like for 2022. Kind of see what it looks like to build our board. Maybe put a new application out there to build more, new board members based on where some of our old board members have moved on, or due to COVID, or different jobs, right, that have changed. And so we're just gonna look and see what that looks like, along with program base. And so. Right, we're all volunteers, so there's not a paid person to do any of this, but I think being able to leverage more and delegate more would be good too, and also figuring out like someone maybe to be able to do community events and help orchestrate that moving forward.
On behalf of St. Andrew, we have enjoyed the ability to work with single parents in the past, too, and we look forward to discovering ways to be a partner with you ongoing here in Eden Prairie and beyond, without a doubt. So we're really happy that you can be here to help us get this back into our perspectives here in our minds. For those of you who have gathered here in person, those who come online, I always learn something new when Krystal talks, and I always view my neighbor a little bit differently when she shares with me that I don't know as much as I think I know, and I don't quite understand as much as I should. About circumstances. So thanks for being that witness, Krystal, for me and for all of us. Any other questions here at all from the community here before? One more here. I'll bring this mic here. Not a question, a comment? Here you go.
Everybody's commenting.
So Krystal, hello?
Let's see. I think it's...
Maybe it's you.
Did I just...
Thank you. I'm a teacher. I could have been loud enough. I don't know why I needed a mic. So Krystal was referring to last year when it was an open and she had all these requests. I was one of them, calling and saying, I have a student. I'm also a single mom. And so we have that connection. We also have a connection that when her and I did become friends, not knowing she was friends with I was raised single mom, from a single mom. And my dad and Krystal knew each other before I knew each other because she was friends with my brother and sister.
Yeah.
Long story. But back last year for Christmas, I had a student who had lost a father to a violent tragedy last year. And I reached out and I said, is there any way, and she was actually my student the year before, and she's like, no problem, no problem. And I'm like, are you sure? She's like, no problem. And I don't know if you guys remember, but remember we got all that horrible weather? The horrible weather. And was it your mom?
Huh?
Was it your mom that ended up delivering it? Somebody
I don't
ended up
know.
delivering, and I was like, oh my gosh, I hope to goodness nobody gets in an accident because of one moment, one request. How's this gonna go? And everything worked out well, and Krystal kept saying, no, everything's fine, everything's fine. And then prior to that, my birthday is May 25th. That night, she's like, calls and she's like, are you home? And I'm like, yeah. And so I go down there and she's got a little basket, which I didn't know that you did for the single moms, right? And that was also the night of George Floyd. And so, and I am somebody during the whole COVID, stayed in, didn't go anywhere. And for her to reach out, one, on my birthday was amazing, but two, on that day. And I grew up on 38th Street, right down the street. So life happens, and I do believe connections happen for reasons. And the piece that it's an emotional one. We do get judged. And her and I sitting here together, we get judged differently. We absolutely do. And everybody needs to really hone in on what everyone can do. Because if she can do this as a single mom with 3 kids, just think what everybody else can do as well if they just put a little effort into it. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I think with Krystal, there's always the chance it's going to get better. Optimistic and hopeful and caring. So I thank you, Krystal, for what you do for single parents, for sharing your story more widely with people here who know you and have now gotten to know you a little better. And I hope and look forward to what the next year holds for us. It's right up against 7:30. Now it's 7:28, and our canto choir rehearses at 7:30 here in the sanctuary. So we always have a hard stop right at 7:30. But I want to thank Krystal for being here, and all of you. A little applause is in order here for Krystal. And thanks so much for being here. Any closing comments at all from you as we make our way?
No, I think just reach out to your neighbor because you never know what's going on and you never know what's happening. Situations happen drastically, as Michelle kind of said, right? You go from even, right, like I've been a single mom for a long time, but I'm an independent mom, but I don't consider myself like single, meaning like I have people in my circle that I can trust and I go to, right? There's other people that are very, like, have nobody, right? There's other single moms, single dads that are raising children that really don't have anybody to go to, right? And so you could be that person, right? Even if it's a simple phone call, right? Even if it's hey, I need help. Or I remember calling Mike and being like, I need you to come get my kids because I got to take a kid to the ER, right? Like, there's 2 kids at home or whatever the situation is, or I'm late from work, can you help me, right? And so just being that person, and maybe not all the time you can be that person, but knowing that they can trust you is a big deal. And so I think being that non-judgmental person, and even though you might have things going on in the back of your head, and we're all a little bit judgmental because of certain things that are happening, or we might be in a rush in ourselves and we have certain things going on, to be able to take a minute and step back and just think about like how small acts of kindness actually matter. And for a single parent, it's drastic. It's not just they matter, it drastically matters. And so, I mean, even giving a $25 gift card to somebody could make their whole world turn upside down, right? And so I just say those things because I think that all those little things just matter, and I think everybody in here matters. And so I just want to say thank you for all being here, and thanks for having me.
Thanks for your voice. I appreciate it. Have a good night, everyone. Thanks for being here.